עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, Amen. My name is Zohar. I'm a rabbi from Israel, and I serve in this congregation. I will tell you more about this, and actually I would love for this to be a conversation where we all share thoughts and ask each other questions. I'd like to tell you where we are, so that you know. We are now in a relatively small Israeli town called Kiri'at Tivon. It's got about 17,000 people. Not very large, but not very small. And this congregation, the congregation is part of the Reform movement in Israel. The Reform movement is, in fact, the largest organized Jewish religious group in the world. However, in Israel, it is fairly small. In the United States, there are about 1.5 million people who are Jewish and are affiliated as Reform, and there are more than 1,000 congregations in the United States alone, most of which are much larger than this one. And originally, the Reform movement began in Germany. There are many Germans here, and you may know this. Began more than 200 years ago when the Jewish people in Germany and the West were facing a quick process of modernization and emancipation. And the Jewish people had a dilemma. What do we do with changing life? What do we do with technology? What do we do with the fact that the Jewish people who were living in closed groups in Europe all of a sudden are allowed to be part of the larger society? And different people had different reactions to this. Some people just left Judaism. If I was Jewish, I was living in Prussia, I could become a Prussian citizen. Yeah? Why be Jewish when I can be German or French or Dutch or Belgium or British? So many people left the religion. Some people got very afraid of the change. So they said, oh, we will make a stop for everything that is new. Yeah, technology is dangerous. Change is dangerous. Being mixed with a non-Jewish people is dangerous. And so they became what we call today ultra-Orthodox. Basically, if you see the Jewish people wearing the black robes, so it's one of the ways to say we don't go with fashion. We keep the old Jewish ways. And the Reform movement, of which I am part and this congregation is part, they said, no, we have to reform Judaism. We have to reform our religion, that it would match up with modern time. And therefore it was called Reform. To reform Judaism. To be open, to accept the fact that religion must change. In order to keep the tradition, we must change. So the beginning of the Reform movement was in Germany and Europe. Because of World War II and the Holocaust, most of that world was destroyed. The Reform movement became very, very prosperous and very, very influential in the United States, also in New Zealand, also in Australia, to a lesser extent in other parts of the world. And as I said before, as very, very large and well organized and still influential voice of the Jewish people in the United States. The Reform movement was not always Zionist. In other words, many of the people of the Reform movement felt that wherever they are, wherever there is a temple, that is where the Promised Land is, not necessarily in this Holy Land. But some people of the Reform movement have become Zionist, and the Reform movement in Israel is a Zionist movement, which means that we are part of the group of the people who believe that this is a homeland for the Jewish people. In Israel, we're fairly small, and we're also discriminated upon. As a Reform rabbi in the United States, I can officiate weddings. In Israel, I officiate weddings. This month, I'm fortunate and blessed to officiate 6 weddings. However, none of those people, they will all have to go somewhere else, to Cyprus or to Prague, to get married legally, because the government gives a monopoly to the Orthodox religion, clergy, and only they can officiate weddings. So, however, we are growing stronger in Israel. We now have 50 congregations in Israel like this. We have a headquarters which is in Jerusalem. And we're serving many more people in the land of Israel who don't necessarily officially belong to our congregations in the narrow sense of the word. However, they can relate to our path of Jewish spirituality, namely that many Israelis now who may call themselves secular, that is not affiliated with the Orthodox religion, are still interested in spirituality, in tradition, and we find ourselves serving them. They may not come here for Shabbat services, but we go out to them. So just to give you an example of the way how I lead my life, which is an example of how Reform rabbis in Israel lead their lives. Part of my work is in this congregation, where we have all the holidays, all the Saturday services. We have a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah youth program for youngsters and their families, serving about 30 families a year in this vicinity. I officiate weddings. I do whatever clergy do, all the life cycle events. I work in a radio station in Tel Aviv, where I broadcast two radio shows weekly about Judaism, philosophy, spirituality, current events, etc. I work in pastoral care at a youth center in another town in the Galil, not far from here, trying to bring pastoral care into youths at risk. I sometimes go into public schools through some program that want to introduce liberal rabbis into public schools to have some, not exactly religious programs, but Jewish tradition programs in a liberal way. And I officiate all over the country. Israel is fairly small, so if I'm called to officiate a wedding, even in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, I do that. Also, one thing that we try to do here is, even though we're only beginning to get into this field, but we've already made a few steps, thank God, is to try to create a dialogue between us and non-Jews who live in this area. One example is our relationship with Nesamim, but there are other examples. And it's not so simple. Actually, we find it simpler to reach out to Christian brothers and sisters. So far with the Muslims, it's been harder, but we're not giving up. We're still hoping that we will succeed. And so we're very busy. Our headquarters in Jerusalem are also politically active. We have איך אומרים מחלקה משפטית, נירה? The Religious Action Center that has, actually today they've been to the Supreme Court petitioning all sorts of things that are involving civil rights, minorities, oppression of women, oppression of different parts of the society. So we have actually a strong legislative and political arm that is trying to lobby also in the Israeli parliament, in the Knesset, and support actions that we feel that should be supported. For example, I'll give you an example. There's been a phenomena in some ultra-Orthodox towns that after, for some reason, they started to have separate sidewalks or separate buses. So that women cannot go on the bus and sit with the men. So we felt that we have to make a petition against that, and we won. So this is an example of a civil right action, in this case, discrimination against women, that we're taking care of. Some of these things also involve things that we feel are discriminative against non-Jews, minorities in this country, and we're also active in that to a certain degree, not a small degree. So, just to summarize this short introduction, and then I'll be happy to take the discussion to wherever you want to take it. I say that we are very busy in this country to try to influence Jewish spirituality and Jewish tradition in ways that we feel are more going towards liberal thought, pluralistic thought. What we believe that what our tradition teaches us is to keep humanistic values, to make religion and spirituality and tradition a place where people find inspiration to, this is all F-16 pilots, this is all the Israeli Air Force, because there is a military, what's that? Yeah, air base not far, so this is what we're hearing. So as I am, yeah, they're only exercising, Nirat, don't worry. But as we're talking here about pluralistic values and, what's that?
Can they exercise also how to throw bombs?
Yeah, but not here, only over there. Yeah. Yeah. But then there's also a risk of earthquake here, so you never know. So you never know. Anyways, what we try to do in Israel together is to educate and lead and demonstrate how Judaism, Jewish tradition, can become a positive force, and what we see as positive. Okay, everybody has their own positive in bringing people together, in helping people to get over fear and open up. And there's lots of work, and I'm sure that some of this is work that you also do in your congregations, in your organizations. So I welcome you to our humble congregation. Another sentence about this congregation. It's this group of people here. They've been praying together for the past 40 years. 40 years. The building, this congregation has about 145 years. Nira is correcting me. I have been serving here only for the past 2 years, because I live in the north now, but only 2 years ago, me and my family moved from the center, from Tel Aviv, to this area. So before I was a rabbi in Tel Aviv, now I'm a rabbi here. And but this congregation has been around for the past 45 years. This building about 6 years, right? 6 or 7? Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah. So the past 8 years, and it's a very warm, welcoming, beautiful congregation of people who are devoted to keeping this tradition of pluralistic Judaism, liberal Judaism, in this area. Again, without any or almost no support from the authorities, from the government, in a country where there is no separation of church and state. So again, in other countries, for example, in the United States, nobody is supported by the state. In some countries, such as far as I know, in Germany, the churches are supported by the state, but you can choose if you want to be a Catholic or Protestant. Here, the state only mostly supports the Orthodox direction. And we have a constant battle to say either we separate church and state and everybody can choose freely where to go, or if you're supporting the Orthodox, And if there are people in this region who want also to have liberal Reform Judaism, please also support us. And this is a slow process, and slowly, as we're getting into the hearts of the people, we feel that we're also getting some, we're making small steps with the government. And this is where we are. So this has been a kind of a dry description just to give us context. And I'm very happy to take this discussion now from wherever you feel that I'm very curious as to what interests you. You're visiting Israel. Some of you I heard for the first time. So I'm very curious and happy to open a dialogue about any subject that interests any of us. So please. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, just to start with, can you explain how does one become a rabbi? Is there a process like steps
Yeah.
to want to become a rabbi? And is it possible for a woman to be a rabbi in a Reformed tradition?
Yes. The Reform movement has complete equality between men and women since the 1970s. Men and women alike can become rabbis in our movement, and they can serve and they can enjoy all the rights and all the duties, women and men alike. In order to become a rabbi in our movement, I mean, there's two levels to the question. One is the technical one, and also how does one become a rabbi, which I can say, and maybe some of you can relate that in a way I can say everything in my life until that moment has led me towards it. But technically, to become a rabbi in our movement, there is a college called Hebrew Union College. It has 4 branches in Los Angeles, Cleveland, New York, and Jerusalem. I, of course, studied in the Jerusalem brand. It's a 4-year program. In order to get accepted, you need to have a bachelor's degree from a university. In order to graduate, you need to have, in addition to the 4 years of training, a master's degree in Jewish philosophy or Jewish education or Jewish history from an Israeli university. And the 4 years of training includes religious studies, Bible studies, other sacred book studies such as the Talmud, pastoral care, managerial skills, 1 semester of Islam, 1 semester of Christianity, some semesters in education, and some stage, some apprenticeship. And if you fulfill all your exams and everything, you pass an ordination committee, and then you become a rabbi. And then the hard work only begins, yeah, as you know. And the other answer would be that being a Reform rabbi in Israel is not an obvious career choice. I don't know how in your country how obvious career choice is to become a clergy, but for example, it never occurred to me until I was about 30 that this is actually an option for me. Even though I was doing this unofficially, yeah. But for example, I can tell you that my background, my father is still an Orthodox Jew. I grew up in an Orthodox family, even though my mother came from a secular background. So I knew always that there is many ways to be. And when I was younger, I was working in education. I was also dealing with music. I started to volunteer in things that are related to religion. And then when I was 30 years old, somebody told me, maybe you should become a Reform rabbi. My first initial was, no, what is this? And then afterwards, I changed my mind. Yeah. Okay, so more. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's helpful to, every day we are learning new things, and we'll go back home with maybe some confusion, but at least we will have known, be aware of the variety of issues here. I'm very much interested in your pluralistic approach, which includes human rights question and so on. Since we've been in this country, we haven't heard very much the question of who owns the land, who owns the land. As a rabbi, what would be your response to the question?
Well, thank you for the question. The short answer is that nobody owns the land. The land, maybe maybe the land owns us. Maybe we are part of the land. I really believe that. I believe that essentially everywhere around the world we should ask ourselves, and also in this country, we should ask ourselves not who owns the land, but who is included in the land. And there's this when Jacob, the famous dream of Jacob with the ladder, in Genesis, when he woke up and God promised, He told him, you should look to all the four directions of the earth, and this is your land. This will be your land. So in our tradition, there's, as far as I know, at least 3 interpretations what this means. Who owns the land? That the land was promised to Jacob. One interpretation is saying, if you look to the east, to the west, to the north, to the south, everywhere you go, it doesn't matter if you're in Israel or United States or France or Uganda or Botswana, if you are a son or daughter of the Israelites, and you can also see it metaphorically, if you live a righteous life, then this is your land. Yeah, and this doesn't matter if you're genetically Jewish or Christian or Muslim. That's a universal approach. Another approach is about that this land doesn't mean, and by the way, our Reformed rabbis and sisters in the United States, their synagogues are called temples. Why are they called temples? Because they really believe that as I said, they weren't Zionist. They believe if I am a Jewish person, I live in Oklahoma or Mississippi. If this is my synagogue, this is my temple, I lead a Jewish life, then I don't relate to the temple in Jerusalem. This is my center. Yeah? So this is a completely universalist approach. Another approach, this land is for you. That means that, and some people believe that means that the Jewish people were promised the land of Israel, and therefore it belongs to them and only to them. Yeah? And many people believe that in this country. A third approach is that God promised, as He said, this is your land, but it's not only your land. Because we know that in biblical times, and actually from the ancient times until today, this was always a homeland for the Jewish people, but there were always other people living here with us. And in fact, the Bible is all the time, if you know the Bible, it's always, which I'm sure you do, there's always a conflict about should we exterminate the non-Jews who live here, or should we live together with them? But historically, we know that the Jewish people always shared this land, and we still share this land with other people. And probably, God willing, we will always share this land with other people. So I actually, personally, I believe in this third approach. Being a son of this country, my family has been here for many generations from the time of the Turkish Empire. So I feel very much part of this land. In fact, my grandfather's father had fields. It's from the northern town of Metula, which is the very northern tip of Israel. And some of the fields that our family owned many years ago is now in southern Lebanon. So just to say how much we feel that we don't want it back, it's okay, but we're happy to give it away, to have international borders, but just to show how much I feel part of this land. But I know that from the time that I was born, I was sharing this land with people who are Jewish and people who are Muslim or Christian or other, and I see it as a blessing. It's sometimes also difficult because, of course, it arises conflict, but I see it as a blessing. I don't want everybody to be like me. It's boring, and I believe that God speaks in one voice, but everybody hears it differently, and therefore I try to be. Even though sometimes it's challenging to see the abundance of cultures, religions, traditions that are in this country as a blessing, not as a dangerous thing. And I think if we see it like that, then it can be. It's a very long answer to your question, but yeah.
Do you think that sharing is boring?
What's that?
Do you think that sharing is boring?
No, I think that it's very challenging. If everybody is like me, it's boring. Yeah.
Everybody like him.
Yeah. If everybody is like me, it's boring. I enjoy the fact that we have a multicultural country.
Where are the differences to regular Orthodox? That's the one question, and the religious and the political one is, we met Palestinians who are living in Israel who are saying that they are second-class citizens. When I hear that you are, I don't know, in the fifth generation and cannot marry in this country legally, do you feel like a second-class citizens? And could that be a new line, bringing all these people together, Armenians and Palestinians and others, and say we want to have a first-class citizenship in this country, and so that maybe you are not the majority, but a stronger minority than today. So that's the political question.
There's one hand that I...
And then you remind me, because
Yeah.
the questions are so interesting, and I start to answer in my head, and then I forget what was the question.
That's why I give you time just to...
Okay.
Mine is, can I become a member to your congregation as I'm not a Jew?
Okay. Wow, it's a good question. Yeah. So,
Maybe under just addition to the question, your party that you belong to, does it have some seats in the government?
About the political issue, the first thing I want to say, a general thing, is that I'm clergy, I'm a rabbi, I'm not a politician, and I feel that my work should mainly be on the spiritual and social side, and not in the political side, in the harsh sense that, for example, I don't know what's better. Is it a two-state solution, or a one-state where everybody shares the same power? I really don't know. I know that when I was a much younger man, in the 90s, there was an attempt to make the Oslo Agreement, to share the land, which was sort of imposed from the top to bottom. People shook hands in the White House. The leaders tried to make peace and to create a two-state solution. And we've seen what happened since, that there was just only more violence. And I'm not saying now who's to blame. Everybody is to blame, and everybody is a victim. So I know that my religion and not even the religion, just being a human being, I must believe that whatever rights I have and my children have, so is the next man, regardless of their religion, their color, their ethnic background, their being man or woman. I'm obliged to this. And this can only happen when the hearts are open and ready. And the society, top, bottom, is ready for this thing. So I see my role as, first of all, educating myself, because I often succumb to fear and to hate and to despair, just like any other person, because of the violence. If I'm worried about my children, I have 4 children, I'm worried about them, I can become like any parent. I can become aggressive, protective. So first I have to work on myself. Then I have to work on the people around me. And if somebody sees me as a rabbi, then I can offer my opinion. And I believe that when the hearts are ready, when society is ready, then it really doesn't matter so much if we're 1 state, 2 states, 4 states, confederacy. I'm open for any solution that would make it best for everybody. And I'm really not sure that a 2-state solution is the best one. Maybe it should only be 1 country, in which maybe there are different areas or regions or whatever. But this political agreement can be very easy once we are ready for it. So I'm happy for any solution that gives equal rights for everybody, and tries to keep all the rights of everybody involved to the best in the best way. Now, most people in the Reform movement would be affiliated either with the Labour Party or Meretz. I personally, I'm a member of the Meretz Party. Our chairman, the CEO of our movement, Rabbi Gilad Kariv, is actually a candidate in the Labour Party. He's number 32. Unfortunately, they only got 24 seats. So yes, if more people voted for the Labour Party, then we would have a seat in the parliament. However, I can tell you that I know that the head of the nationalist Jewish party, Bennett, who is actually in the right wing, is behind the scenes collaborating with our movement in some things, because together we have some debate with the ultra-Orthodox. So it's not so simple as it seems. There's more. It's more complicated than it looks. For example, he just gave a huge budget for our movement to work with the congregations in the diaspora in America and in Europe, and he brought his budget through our movement, because in sometimes there's political interest that can match. So in the Israeli politics, like any politics, is very complicated, and sometimes you don't know. And I didn't even know this. I just happened to be in the headquarters, and I met the chairman, and he was on the phone with him. I said, "Why are you on the phone with him? He's our enemy. We're left wing. He's right." No, actually, sometimes you can make an effort. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, and then what is the difference with Orthodox, and then how you feel with the second-class citizen?
Okay.
The other religious thing was what is the kosher food?
Okay. So the reform. One of the things that the reform movement believes that Jewish law, the halakha, Jewish law, is not necessarily the most important thing in Judaism. In this way, we are very different than the Orthodox. Part of the changes that were made in Germany 200 years ago were to say halakha, the Jewish law, must change with time. So we learn the Jewish law, we know the rules of kosher, and we know the rules of when you're supposed to, what you're supposed to do on the Sabbath or not, but we believe in spiritual autonomy. So I don't know, the people in my congregation, if they come on Yom Kippur, the holiest day where every Jewish person is supposed to fast, I don't ask them, do you fast? Do you fast? I fast because I choose to. But if they go out and they have a sandwich, it's between them and God. The same thing goes to kosher or to keeping the Sabbath. For me, it's important to keep the Sabbath as a tradition for the family, to make sure that poor people don't have to work on the day of rest, which many of them do in this country, because consumerism is making everybody wanting to open the stores always, all the time, and the poor people have to work 7 days a week all the time. So that's important to me. But if you drive on Sabbath exactly, yes or no, and about keeping kosher, again, it's religious autonomy. Many of us are actually vegetarian. I'm not, but many of my colleagues believe that nowadays kosher means that you have to be vegetarian. So when I think about kosher, I think about how is this animal treated? If you eat in a restaurant, are the waiters and the cooks in this restaurant are being paid okay? So there's social and ecological kosher. And some of us keep the kosher as a tradition, but not necessarily because of a simple religious command. So we believe in Judaism that is cultural, traditional. It's about prayer. It's about spiritual work. It's about social action and a commitment to repairing the world. Learning the wisdom of our ancestors, learning Torah. But how we live our daily life, it's more to the person's interpretation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the second question that you had?
Was a second-class citizenship when you cannot
Yeah.
marry, and there are many Palestinians
Yeah.
who feel set back. Is that a common?
Yeah, well, the truth is that I cannot call myself a second-class citizen because I'm one of the privileged ones in this country. I have to admit, as being Jewish, as being an Ashkenazi Jew, that is a Jew who came from that. Okay, we've been here since the time of the Turkish Empire, but originally we came from Europe, the family. So I'm one of the. I have to admit that I'm one of the privileged ones. I'm one of the privileged class. I cannot honestly say that that I'm discriminated. I'm discriminated as a Reform rabbi, but nobody made me be a Reform rabbi. I decided to become a Reform rabbi because I thought it would be a good way to spend my adult life. And in such a way, yes, I think that we can, actually we do. We try to make coalitions sometimes on the local level and sometimes on a national level, with other minorities, and basically our fight for equal rights. For example, for one of the reasons, actually the main reason why there's an Orthodox monopoly in marriage. Why? Why is there an Orthodox monopoly in marriage? The answer is very simple. Why is there no civic marriage in Israel? Because God forbid, if there will be civic marriage, then Jews and Arabs, Muslims and Christians and Jews can marry. And somebody doesn't want that. What if we marry each other? Then there will be no reason to fight, because we will be one people, right? Yes, our fight for equal rights has to be fight for everybody's equal rights. Yeah, and then there's of course a question, the complexity. How do we maintain this as a homeland for the Jewish people? Can it be possible? Maybe we have to give it up. Maybe there can be a solution. Yeah, because equal rights also mean my rights. Yeah, as a Jewish people to have a homeland. But also the Arab, also the Muslim, also the Christian, he has the same right as me. So we have to talk together and see how it can be done. But not to say that it's simple. But yes, some of this, I'll give you an example, gay and lesbian rights. In our movement, we have a policy of accepting gay and lesbian marriage. I don't know how it's like in your churches. Maybe it's not the same. And actually we have been a force in Israeli society helping that. Gay and lesbian people can even serve as rabbis in our congregations. So that's one example of how our oppression and their oppression is meeting together. Yeah. And I believe that Judaism and probably any religion should teach us to be humble. And being humble means that we don't own all the truth. Maybe this person or this person has an experience that is different than mine, and they experience God in a way that is different, and I have to respect that. So I believe that finding a spiritual point inside must make us be humble and know that we never have all the truth, only God. And we always have to search. And how can you be a religious extremist then? Because being an extremist means that you know everything, you know best. If I know better than you, I can tell you what to do. But I don't know anything better than you. So I pray for a religion that is teaching me to be humble. I'm not humble enough, and I should be more humble. And I think that this is a call for religious leaders in this country, but probably everywhere, to refrain from extremism, because it's actually vain to be an extremist. Who am I to think that I can interpret the Word of God? Maybe I see a fraction of it. So this is what I try to work on myself and maybe share it with others. But somehow I feel that many people seek the other kind of extreme religion. Yeah. So as we said before, the fact that the Orthodox has a monopoly, it doesn't make us happy. And we suffer from it. We would like to either have a separation of church and state in Israel, and let people choose which kind of religion, which kind of church or synagogue they want to join, and knowing that it's unlikely to happen in the near future because the religion and state is so closely connected in this country. Then we want also a share of the cake. You were talking about the cake before, so we say if the Orthodoxy has a share, we should also have a share. And let people decide what they want to support. And so we suffer from it, and it makes us very unhappy that the government still maintains that there's only one way to be Jewish. The government accepts Catholic Christians and Protestant Christians, and Greek Orthodox Christians, and Maronites, and evangelical, but they don't recognize Reform Judaism. It's crazy in the Jewish state. And if an American Jew comes from America here, they can't believe that they don't feel welcome in their own country, which is supposedly their homeland. Yeah, so it's a big source of agony to us.
But the government will say, I beg your pardon, the government will say it is Orthodox Judaism which protects the culture of the people of Israel much more than the progressive ones and whatever have you.
Yeah.
I guess this is what they would say. Would you like to shed some light on that?
Well, again, who protects the tradition more, the extremists or the moderate? Many secular Jewish people hate their own religion because of the extremists. And I meet them all the time, because the couples who come to me to get married, most of them, they don't come to me because they love me so much as they hate the Orthodox establishment. So this is true. And they all come to me and they say, yeah, we don't like this mixture of church and state and the establishment, and they tell us all sorts of things, and they make the woman go through all sorts of things that are not interesting to her, or she doesn't. So actually there's a lot of antagonism, and many Israelis are getting, Jewish Israelis are getting further away from their tradition because of the extremity of the extreme Orthodox way. That this is the only way. So actually, I'd like to believe that our way is bringing people closer. For example, on the question of gender, if a woman has celebrating a bar mitzvah to her son, and she's in an Orthodox synagogue, she has to, you see that there's no separation in this room, but in an Orthodox synagogue, the women would be in the back or in the top floor behind the curtain, and her son here is having an important ceremony, and she's over there, she cannot be with him. So when she comes here and she can sit just like we are sitting now and be part of the service, she feels connected. So in this sense, we believe that seeing where the society is and being actually pluralistic is bringing people closer. And we are trying to convince everybody that to accept us. And by the way, we don't have a problem with the Orthodox. We respect them, and as again, my father is an Orthodox rabbi, and there's no, for me, I can respect someone who chooses to be more observant and to keep the Orthodox way. I just feel that there should be a choice, and that we should be able to decide how we want to live our life without the monopoly of the government. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your views here. I want to link with something that had been said. You refer to Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people, but we're also using the term of a Jewish state. Would you see there a difference, and how would you, from your Reformed Jewish tradition, describe the importance of the land, or is there at all any particular meaning that is attached to this land you're living in, from your theological perspective?
Yeah, I wanted to add a question about the Arab-Muslim marriage.
So this one is easier to answer. It's very simple. A Muslim, actually, I'm invited this Tuesday to a Muslim wedding. They're married by an imam who is recognized by the state. Very simple. Yeah. But they can only marry, a Muslim can only marry a Muslim, a Christian can only marry a Christian, a Jew can only marry a Jew. A Jew can marry a Muslim if they go to Cyprus and they get married and they come back the next day and they go to the Israeli Ministry of Interior, it is accepted and they're married. But they cannot do it in Israel. It's crazy, but that's how it is. Yeah?
The Muslim of religion in Israel for everybody except Jews.
Except for Reformed Jews. That's the way it is.
No, except Jews.
Yeah.
Not only Reformed, conservative Jews.
Right.
Secular Jews.
The state of Israel does not recognize a civic marriage. They only allow a religious entity of a recognized religious group to officiate. So, for example, they came to the Reform and said, "Why don't you declare yourself another religion? You're not Jewish, you're Reform." To which we refused because, excuse me, we are Jewish. Who are you to say to us and to 1.5 million Jews in the United States and millions of people around the world that we're not Jewish? They said, yeah, we will give you your own church. You will be Reformed. No, we said, we are Jewish and we're fighting to be recognized as Jewish rabbis because that's what we are. Yeah? So everybody can marry within their own religion to keep the separation. Actually, people can remarry, can intermarry if they do it abroad and come back, and then it's recognized. But it's a wrong way to do it. Yeah, So that was the relatively easy question. About the Jewish state and the Jewish... Look, I don't know if the rocks in this country are holier than the one in Rwanda or Botswana. Yeah, I actually doubt it. I feel connected to this, I feel connected to this country because it's where I was born and where my family has been for quite a few generations. Because the memories of my childhood and my adulthood and where I raised my family and my children, that's why it's my homeland. Yeah, that's why it's my homeland. It's people here speak the Hebrew language, which is my language. This is, we celebrate our holidays. In this sense, this is our homeland. And once again, in our homeland, there are other people who are from a different religion, and we share this land. And this is not the only country in the world where this happens. There are many countries in the world where you have different nations. And I'm sure, and once again, I'm sure that if everybody works together, we can find a way to all live together and to maintain our rights as groups. Yeah. Again, the only way, as also what I answered you, it's the same thing. As clergy, I have to educate, to open the heart, and then the solutions will come. Yeah.
Yeah. If God is offering a solution to solve the conflict here through His people, so what is the role of you and your group here? What part will you take?
Yeah, that's a question I ask myself all the time. What is my role when I get up in the morning? Yeah. Make sandwiches for my children, etc. I think that our role is to help people get over fear and to trust that change is possible. That's what we have to do.
I see some hope here.
Yeah, and yet we might fail. And sometimes people have good reasons to be afraid. The fear is not imaginary. People here have suffered. Everybody here is post-traumatic. Every single person in this country is post-traumatic. Doesn't matter if they're Arab, Jewish, Israeli, Palestinian. There's not one person in this country who hasn't either been in a war, or in a terrorist attack, or in a bus explosion. And I've heard the countries where people have come here, it's similar or maybe even worse in your countries, in some of your countries. Hong Kong, maybe not so much, not recently, but maybe in the previous history. But many countries in Africa that some of our friends here have suffered great atrocities and still do, and violence. And in this way, we share the knowledge what it means to have a post-traumatic population, where either you or someone you know or someone from your family either was a victim of violence or a creator of violence, and sometimes both. And I don't know what's worse. And this is the vicious cycle of violence and mistrust, and many people, and you saw this in the past elections, why the Israeli people have chosen very clearly and showed very clearly what they believe. I happen to have voted for somebody else, but most Israelis voted for a government which more or less say we cannot afford to change because we cannot trust the other side. Very simple. And the people aren't stupid. They're just, there's just always an inner conflict between how much can I afford to trust and change. And again, I pray for the change. I'd like to believe that I'm part of the people who are, working towards change, making a more liberal, more pluralistic, more open society, to ask the difficult questions, and make people say, look, we live in a paradox because, okay, this is the Jewish homeland. What does it mean to be a Jewish homeland? If you open the Bible and you see that we have to respect the Gentile, and that our tradition teaches us a humanistic approach towards every human being, So the Jewish people has to be, the Jewish state has to be a country where these standards are met. Yeah? But then some people say, yeah, but if we do that, we lose the country. So this is an inner conflict that we all live in. And we always have to pull to the side of us that is more trusting, more believing in change. And then we it's like quitting smoking. You always have to fight, and so that's our role. That's our role, and it's a difficult one, and we don't have all the answers either.
Yeah, Bishop Gamshamuk.
I think on a lighter note,
Yeah.
The tree at your back.
Ah, this one. It is a tree of life.
Okay.
It's a tree of life, and this is our ark. I will open it since you asked. What we have inside, okay, is two Torah scrolls, 1, 2, the large one and the second one. Many congregations have many more Torahs. We have only 2. This one is very heavy, and this one is lighter. So sometimes if we have services outside, we bring this one, because it's portable. This I'll tell you something about this scroll, and these are made out of cow skin, and it's handwritten with a feather, just like Nira said that it's the same design for thousands of years, man-made, and this one is actually a Holocaust survivor, the small one. It belongs to a lady in our congregation, actually the chairwoman of our congregation. Her family is from Germany, and it has been brought to her family from Europe after World War II. So this one, in Europe, when many scrolls were actually burnt or thrown in the street, this one wasn't. This one, because it was small, they were able to rescue it. So when we read this, it's also a symbol for us that even though great atrocities are made, there's still hope that we can read it. And these are just for the children to play. When we take them out, we can bring this is not real. This is only, it's like a doll. Yeah, we give the children so they can also hold it and dance with it. Yeah. So this is and the tree of life. Of course, you know what it symbolizes. It's where we're all connected as one spirit, which is why we have it. We have it here, and on the other side, you see it's white. On the high holidays, when we have Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, we turn it around and we have the white one. Yeah. So this is what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a more personal question. You said a few times now that your father is an Orthodox rabbi, and I would be interested in, why did you decide to not follow the Orthodox steps of your father, and what made you choose this way, and also if this caused troubles, I don't know, in the relationship with your father or your family.
Well, my father is an Orthodox rabbi who married a secular Jew, my mother, so he taught me to always be on the edge. Yeah. When he was a young student at the yeshiva, at the religious school, he was 20, and he was one of the better students. So the rabbi, there was 2 rabbis at this yeshiva, at this school, and he told them, "I'm going to marry this not Orthodox, a secular woman." So one rabbi was very worried that she will not wear a head covering, because Orthodox women wear a head covering, and how can it be that one of our better students will have a wife who doesn't cover her head? So he kicked my father out of the main hall, and he said, "You cannot study with us." So he had to study in his room alone. Another rabbi, the other rabbi said, "It's actually a very good idea that you marry this woman, because then you can show her the beauty of our tradition." So even within Orthodoxy, there's different views to see this. I became secular when I was 14 years old. My family, my parents are also academics, so we went to a place called Princeton, New Jersey. There's a big university there, because my parents are university professors. So I was, until age 14, I was an Orthodox boy in Jerusalem, and then I was thrown into an American public school with people, just like in this room, with people with all ethnicities, all colors, all traditions. So I said, why should I be religious? I wanted to enjoy the social activities and Saturday, etc. Then when I came back, I was already different. For many years, I was not interested in religion at all. And then as I was maturing, I was starting to search for my own identity. And I knew that I will not come back to Orthodoxy because for me it was too closed, too rigid. And I also couldn't agree with some of its principles. And it took me about 20 years, or more, but to get to this place. And about the tension, I think my father respects me, and he's happy that I'm keeping the tradition in my own way. And he has a very liberal mind, even though in his life he's keeping a very strict law. He has a very liberal way of thinking, and he respects my choice. Yeah. So again, my family is different because even my grandparents, who are Orthodox, but they're very liberal in their mind, and they're always very accepting of everybody. But other people have it very difficult, especially people who come from the ultra-Orthodox. And if they choose to become secular, many times their families will disown them, and they will be alone. And in many cases, not everybody is as lucky as me. So sometimes it causes difficulties. Yeah. My father's uncle said, "How do you know who's okay and who's a zealot?" And because on Yom Kippur, everybody is fasting. Yeah. And towards the end, it can be difficult because you're fasting and you're praying for a day and a half, and sometimes it's hot and you want water and it's difficult. And in the last prayer of the holy day, you have to stand and pray. But if you feel that you cannot stand, you're allowed to sit. If it's a health risk, yeah. So my great uncle always used to say that he is standing, and everybody who gets tired and sits before he does is not serious. And everybody is don't really love God at all, and they're not to be taken seriously. And everybody who stays standing after he sits down are extremists. So you know what I mean? It's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. Yeah. Some people see us as a danger to society. Yes, because we're telling the people that there's other ways to think about your Jewish identity. What is this? Yeah, worse than the secular. Yeah. Better be Christian than be Reformed Jew, because a Christian, yeah, no, they would say that because a Christian at least doesn't claim to be, to be Jewish. Christian is Christian, but you are telling us that you can be Jewish, and I'm a rabbi, I drive on Shabbat. How can that be? Yeah, so for them I'm very dangerous. Yes, very dangerous. I am very dangerous. Yes. Yeah.